So remember when we talked about the PS5 Pro or so? Apparently the reviews are in for the PS5 Pro. So why not let's talk about it right now, you know? Let's talk about it, you know? PS5 review. And of course, our friend Luke Steffens has the insider news on it to see what's going on or so, specifically on the I kind of completely forgot that the PS5 Pro is coming out, to be honest. I don't really keep track of this because I'm usually just playing video games all the damn time. But let's see what they have to say about the PS5 Pro. You know, is it good? Is it bad? Is it worth your money? You know, so let's find out, shall we?
The PS5 Pro. It's in people's hands. People are reviewing it. Later on the stream, separate stream with the poofy hair, we're going to be talking with Joe Raptor because he has his already. He did like an unboxing. He's talked about it, blah, blah, blah. Like, we'll see what he thinks of it because I'm sure he's tested it in, what do you think? Probably Horizon would be my guess. That's my guess, at least. But we'll talk to him about it. But in the meantime, IGN put up a PS5 Pro review. And
oh, this is
I
IGN.
don't want to be like
okay.
super dismissive or anything. They do have thermal testing, it looks like. They're going to do side-by-sides. They're going to do a lot of stuff. So I am excited to see what they say. And they have it at 4K 60, which is already a huge step up compared to CNET, where CNET was given the official contract by Sony for promoting the PS5 Pro, and they uploaded all of their videos at 1080p 30. How that happened, I don't know. It's like that should be bullet point number 1.
Where's the bishop of the PS5
is being
Pro?
sold
Dark?
on the premise of being putting games out at 4K 60. Please provide all coverage
4K,
in at least
60
that quality.
so,
You'd think that would be a standard, but it wasn't. But nonetheless, IGN is here.
We'll take a look
They
at it
are
after
here
to
talk
see
about
it.
it. Let's see. Oh, what I thought.
I didn't even know it already came out already or something like that, you know?
Put my phone on mute.
The PlayStation 5 Pro seems like it should be more exciting than it actually is. It's without question the most powerful console you can buy right now. And the enhanced games I've been able to play ahead of launch do look great and run much more smoothly than the standard PS5 can handle, thanks to some upgraded hardware and impressive upscaling tech. But it's also completely unsurprising that the faster PS5 is, well, faster, and it's also more expensive. Considering that the original PS5 can still provide enough power to run games competently in 2024, spending $700 means you have to really want the best of the best from your games to make the Pro a worthy investment.
Yeah, I've said for a long time, I think that Sony's done a good job positioning themselves as like the Apple of the gaming space, where it's just presumed like it's almost like a social status thing. You see a lot of YouTubers, for whatever reason, that
I don't know if it's a good idea for Sony for them to be the Apple of the gaming industry's like thing or so. They were fucking laughed at or so when they fucking charged like how much or so, like $1,200 or so for like a fucking for a little piecing roly little thing for your computer or so, or whatever the fuck it's called. I don't know how much it was. It was like $1,000 something or something like that. And it's just kind of like, I don't know about that. I don't know if that's a good thing to be called the Apple of the gaming industry. I don't know, man. That's not really a good title to have, in my personal opinion. No, that Pro will be bottlenecking every game with the same CPU. Yeah, because it has the same CPU. Like, especially if a new game comes out that's pushing the graphical fidelity, right? They're pushing the graphical fidelity. That the problem is that CPU is just gonna be hindered so badly, to be honest.
that put their PS5 boxes like in their background so you can see that they have a PS5. It's calmed down since they became more available, but certainly around launch, around like 2020, 2021, that was very, very common. It's very, very strange, but the reason I bring that up is because I think there is a market for people to just buy the really expensive PlayStation for the sake of having the latest PlayStation thing. Like, I do think there's a market for this. Is it huge? I don't know, but I do think it's like sizable.
I don't think it's that
not
massive.
Insignificant. So, you know, this hasn't gone like total gangbusters. It hasn't sold out as far as I'm aware. The 30th anniversary edition did, but that was a very limited supply. But that could also be that they just have way more supply of the PS5 Pro. It could be this, could be that, who knows. One thing that has been brought up that they might not bring up here, the PS5 Pro does not have a disk drive in it in the box, and it also does not have a vertical stand. If you want to buy the vertical stand, it's $30. which is insane. And if you want to buy the disc drive, it's another like 70, 80 bucks. Apparently, across the globe, people cannot get the disc drives. They've been sold out for months. And what it seems is happening is Sony, you know, they make more money on the digital sales than they do on the physical sales. So they really want you to buy your games digitally. They don't want you to get the disc drive. And not to mention just in terms of like how the ecosystem works. Once you buy all your stuff digitally, you're locked into their ecosystem. It's much harder to justify swapping to PC or something if you can't just sell all of your PS5 games that you have in disc form, you know, to get money to go buy games on Steam or Xbox, whatever. So, you know, it's sort of an anti-competitive thing, but also because they're limiting the inventory of the disc drive so much, it seems to me like they are trying to get people to buy this thing or buy other PlayStations. And then because the disc drives are so limited in availability, you like a lot of people are just going to say, screw it. I want to use it now. I'm going to buy God of War Ragnarok digital. I'm going to buy Spider-Man 2 digital.
I don't know about that one, to be honest. Like, there's not really that much of excitement or so for the Spider-Man game, anyways. I don't know about the God of War one though.
I want to test the game. I'm gonna buy Helldivers digital again, just because if they're waiting for a disc version, they may never get it. Certainly, I don't think Helldivers 2 even has a physical edition. Maybe it does, but I think that there's a little something shady going on with the whole disc drive situation. They have to offer it because there's a bunch of anti-competition stuff in the EU where they could face lawsuits and stuff and regulatory fines if they don't have an open market for that type of thing. So they kind of have to offer it, which is why like they haven't gone totally digital only. But it certainly seems like they're trying to push people. They're trying to push people towards just saying screw it and buying everything digital. I buy a lot of stuff digital. For me, it's just more convenient, frankly. But I think it's important for people to.
Well, it's because I buy most of my games on Steam. That's about it. So you know, it's not like I can have physical copies or so for most of these games for my PC. So
have the choice, for people to have the option to do this kind of back.
But for my console on PlayStation 4, I have my library for physicals is bigger than my library for digital. So over here on my shelf over here that I have specifically over here, I have way more over there of physical copies than I do digital. So they say you can take out they say you can take out your PS5 disc drive to put it on the Pro. Still asked to not have a disc drive. The problem is in order for you to do that, you have to unlink it to the normal PS5. So you basically have to like wipe it or so, like data wipe it, and then you have to reconnect it to the new PS5 Pro. But then you have to like download some kind of installer or something like that for you to install it on the PS5 Pro or so, for it to recognize that this is a clean, fresh, you know, it's like something in that sort of process or so, specifically for the PS5 Pro, to put it from the PS5 to the PS5 Pro. It's a bit of a hassle to kind of get that shit working or so, but compared to like just buying a new disc drive, you just buy it, you pop it in, and then that's it, you know. But the PS5 to the PS5 Pro for the disc drive or so, you have to basically unlink it to the PS5, and you gotta do all this other shit, and then you gotta put it into the PS5 Pro, and then you have to make sure it reconfigures it and all this other fucking shit and blah blah blah. There's like small steps in between compared to just buying a new disc drive for the PS5 Pro instead of, you know, reusing it from the PS5, the normal PS5 to the PS5 Pro.
Handed, sneaky way of forcing people into that situation to have to buy stuff digitally, to me just feels really slimy.
Accounts.
Is anyone else also kind of bummed that it doesn't look that different? Like they just ribbed it for your pleasure and that's it. Like I was kind of hoping it would look a lot more different, frankly. Like I don't know, but it's a small point. But when I buy new tech,
to be honest, if I got donated $700 or so for a fucking PS5 Pro, I'm gonna be like, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to use this for a PS5 Pro. I am going to use this for upgrading other stuff. thank you for the donation, but I'm not going to spend it on a PS5 Pro. So,
Heck, I personally like it when it looks a little bit different. Like,
and I think that's a
iPhones
better
looking the exact
investment
same
for the
5 years
stream
at a
instead of
time.
wasting it on
It's
a
kind of
plastic box.
unexciting,
you know?
underwhelming. Like, give me something huge, surprise me, wow me.
For its price, you'll be disappointed to find that the PS5 Pro does not come with every possible bell and whistle. It does pack in a standard DualSense, but there's no vertical stand included, and if you're the type who has a library of physical games, be ready to shell out an extra $80 for a Blu-ray disc drive to install yourself.
If you
feel like Sony is trying to nickel and dime you on top of the $700 price tag, I'm not going to argue against you. Physically, it's a pretty sleek console relative to the enormous launch PS5, and it largely takes after the design principles of the slim model. The only major difference is that it's taller when standing vertical, which is accounted for by the fins in the middle that create a cross-section on the console.
It also makes it so the plates, if you bought replacement plates, they don't work. So if you want to customize this one, you got to buy the plates again. You got to buy different plates. It's very sneaky.
It helps make room for the more robust internal components, but doesn't.
Oh yeah, that's true. Actually, he's not wrong. Actually, yeah, I didn't even notice that because there was like custom plates or so for the PS5 and everything. But you won't be able to do that or so for the new one for the PS5 Pro.
Add much bulk to the existing design. It's also not noticeably louder than the original PS5, so you don't need to worry about it sounding like a jet engine when your games get intense. As far as thermals go, the PS5 Pro runs roughly the same temperature as the base PS5 under load, hovering around 35 to 40 degrees Celsius from the rear exhaust based on our thermal imaging tests. It's a bit striking how little has changed from the original PS5 on the spec sheet. The Pro comes with a 2TB NVMe SSD, which is twice as large but the same speed as the original super fast storage drive. That addresses one of the main complaints about the launch PS5, which is that 1TB goes very quickly when you're installing games that take upwards of 100GB at a time.
I forgot this too, and like, isn't it only 825 gigs? It was something weird. In my brain, I was like, oh, it's a terabyte, but the system software takes it down to like 900, whatever. But I'm pretty sure it was only like 800 something. So it like really wasn't much. 825.
Yeah, because of the OS itself, you know.
Yeah. So like, again, it's just the sentiment right now around PlayStation is starting to shift from like the Apple like exclusive premium, super cool. They're starting to go to late stage Apple, where it's like nickel and diming. We're gonna take this out of the box, but tell you that it's actually for customer choice and flexibility, whatever, like whatever BS they say. So I think, yeah, the separate stand was a dick move. Yeah, I think you're right. There's just no way to twist it where it's like the original one had the disk drive. The original one had the stand in the box. There's no way that stand, the new stand, cost them anywhere close to $30. They only separated it because they knew that a lot of people would want it vertical. In all the marketing, it's vertical. And so they said, hey, we're gonna make you buy that separately. It's again, late stage Apple, where they take out charging bricks, they take out the headphones, they take all this stuff out because they know you're gonna buy it anyways. Like, yeah, you're gonna like it.
For context, an extra 1TB in the form of an aftermarket SSD would run you around $100 if you want the same storage for a base PS5, which sweetens the deal when looking at the price difference between the PS5 and PS5 Pro. The big upgrade though is in the GPU, rated at 16.7 teraflops, which is a sizable jump on paper from the 10.3 teraflops of the original PS5. Sony says the Pro packs 67% more compute units and onboard memory that's 28% faster, resulting in up to 45% better performance. Without context, those numbers don't really mean much, but the details in my testing prove that they amount to a lot more than empty marketing promises. The important feature that these upgraded specs supports,
like, come on, $30. Let me be clear at the, as we were getting into this, there's two things that can be true at the same time, okay? It could be that this is a solid device that greatly enhances your games and is like the definitive way to play console games. That could be true. And it can also be true that Sony, like, they're kind of being dicks with how they price stuff. Those two things can both be true at the same time. It can be a solid offering and it can also be kind of slimy and scummy. In the same way that like if the 5090 is announced and it's like, yeah, you need to plug it into one of those outlets like for your dryer. It needs to be 240 volt, whatever nonsense. And it's a $5,000 graphics card, and you know, it'll give you 15% better performance than the 4090. It could be that that's a really impressive piece of hardware, and it also is like kind of just not a good price to performance ratio. It's not a great offering and not a great product offering. Like I get a migraine whenever I read these posts on like X of the people trying to play defense for PlayStation, because it's like, guys, it can be slimy and still be a good console, or it could be really fair like pro consumer offering, but also just not a great product. And so it's just not worth checking out, no matter how good the company is or how good they're treating people. Like, these are separate questions, but it feels like people are trying to sort everybody into a bucket where either you think it's too expensive, therefore you think it's a garbage machine and it's awful and it's terrible and it's stupid and it shouldn't exist. But that's not true. Like, it can be an awesome device and still they're nickel and diming you and being really slimy with how they sell it to you.
Specifically, is PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution, or PSSR. Much like NVIDIA's DLSS, this is Sony and AMD's AI-driven upscaling technology that uses machine learning to construct images that can appear with a quality close to full 4K resolution without having to stress the system's hardware to generate that detail through raw processing power. Granted, it won't be exactly the same as native 4K since it's scaling from a lower base resolution, but it doesn't have to, since you're not going to be putting it side by side with the real thing, and the vast majority of people aren't going to be able to tell the difference in most cases.
I do think this is important. The average gamer, I think they can tell the difference between 30 and 60, or fidelity and performance mode. I do not
Well, of course you can tell the difference between 30 FPS and 60 FPS. Of course you can.
think the average gamer can tell the difference by the naked eye between 1440p and 4K. I don't think that that's accurate. I used to sell TVs to people. I used to sell home theaters to people, and I just don't see it. I don't see it. At one time, no, it's fine. I'll tell the story anyways. At one time, I went upstairs because my wife was playing a game on her gaming PC upstairs.
Yeah, it's just upscaling.
And I was like, something's weird about it. She had it running at like 800 by 400p, and this is like a modern-ish game. I think it was The Witcher or something. Like it was not. It didn't look good at all. And I changed the resolution for her in the settings. It's like, that's so bad. Hold on. And I fixed it for her. Say, oh yeah, I guess that's better. Wow, okay, thanks. But it didn't really bug her. She was just playing the game. It's whatever. And I do think that there's a lot of people who are not, that's an extreme example, obviously, but I think there's a lot of people who are not very much like resolution snobs. Frame rate snobs, sure, but the resolution snobbishness is a separate...
I care a little bit more about my frame rate or so, especially when I'm playing games or so, at least, you know, and having my VTuber model out at the same time. You know, my VTuber model lags all the time, but for some apparent reason, the game looks fucking crystal clear and like perfect and everything, and it runs buttery smooth and everything. But when I'm having my VTuber model out, you know, my VTuber model seems to suffer apparently for some apparent reason.
You know, I just, and honestly, a lot of the people aren't doing that stuff. I think that they're kind of, it's a bit cap when they're saying that they can see the differences and they know the differences. It's like, let me see if I can find that picture again when we were looking at the Bloodborne side by side. It's like this. I think most people, if you did the side by side, I don't think they'd be able to point out which is which.
The fuck am I staring at? What's the difference or so? Wait, what? Hold up. Wait a second.
Maybe that's cynical of me. Maybe it's unreasonable of me. It's like, oh, it's a sharpness filter, kind of looks like. That's about it. I just think like most people when they're playing the game, they're not gonna be able to really tell. So I think,
wow, it's like so fucking minute. I can't even tell, to be honest. If PC gamers are mostly playing at 1080, who is on console playing in 4K? I have no idea who's playing it in 4K, to be honest, on console. Like, cause I play most of my games in 1080 because my GPU can only, you know, can handle it pretty well or so, especially because I'm running with like my VTuber model, you know, and everything like that. So
I think the resolution thing is much less of a selling point than the frame rate. I think that's a much bigger deal.
Yeah, the frame rate's way more better.
Continuing on.
especially while they're enjoying the higher frame rates and visual effects this technique allows. It's nice to see Sony is moving away from chasing raw computing power as the end-all be-all of console tech, and as upscaling continues to advance, so too will its implementation in games. As you'll see in our performance breakdown, PSSR is one of the major keys in creating parity between quality and performance options. It also opens the door for games to explore ray tracing techniques to a greater extent, although mileage will vary based on every game's PS5 Pro specific updates, where developers will choose to prioritize different aspects of their respective games. So the PS5 Pro is a bit more complex than simply having one uncompromised Pro enhanced mode. The PS5 Pro's tech gives developers room to be experimental in pushing boundaries, especially with ray tracing because it packs enough power to hit higher frame rates without sacrificing as much graphical fidelity. There's still some level of compromise to be made though, so if you were hoping that the Pro would take out all the FOMO stress out of selecting between 60 FPS performance or 30 FPS fidelity modes, well, in some games now there are even more modes to choose from. Alternatively, if you love having that control over how your games run, that's great news. In my experience though, the visual gap between these modes is much smaller than it is on a base PS5, often making the Pro's performance-centric modes the clear choice. Let's start with a marquee PlayStation first-party game, Marvel's Spider-Man 2. On PS5 Pro, you get to choose between Fidelity Pro and Performance Pro modes. The latter offers visual quality.
Again, it all just sounds so Apple to me. The Fidelity Pro Ultra mode or the Pro Motion Pro Fidelity
So the PS5 Fidelity mode and then the PS5 Pro Fidelity Pro mode. But it's like, it doesn't even look anything that different though.
Ultra Plus mode. Depending on which you choose,
get some food.
I don't know where I was going with that, but you know, like the freaking name schemes drive me crazy.
Quality that's identical to the base PS5's Fidelity mode, with all the original ray tracing features intact while maintaining a smooth 60 FPS. Effectively, the best of both worlds when compared to the PS5's modes. However, with the Fidelity Pro option, Insomniac cranked the knobs even further, putting features like ray-traced ambient occlusion, key light shadows, and further improved reflections on the table. But all those upgrades come at the cost again of being chained down to 30 FPS. You can tweak some of these settings to squeeze out a few.
I don't know if I want, ray tracing and all that fancy jazzy stuff if it's gonna hurt me and I'm only gonna have 30 FPS, to be honest. I'm like, I don't really think I want the 30 FPS if it looks so much prettier. I'm like, nah, I think I'm okay. I think I'd rather have my 60 FPS and make the game look pretty good, As long as the game looks pretty fucking good normally, I'm okay,
Few extra frames, but I wasn't able to reach anything near 60 FPS even when turning everything down a notch. Horizon Forbidden West showcases another interesting implementation of PS5 Pro enhancements. It has 3 options: favor graphics, balance, and favor performance. Again, the performance-based mode is the way to go since
Like, it is definitely way sharper and it does look better. Like, I can tell the difference, but I'm also looking for the difference. If you're just playing the game, I'm not sure if it makes that big of a difference to you.
it hits a stable 60 FPS while in some respects looking even better than the base PS5's graphics priority mode. You get finer detail and foliage, better lighting, and a better resolution rendering technique. Especially for a game like Horizon, those extra frames make the gameplay experience so much better, and you can still enjoy the lush vistas with that added clarity. The PS5 Pro's graphics priority option, on the other hand, caps Horizon Forbidden West at 30 FPS, but pushes the boundaries with a higher base resolution. Yet, I don't find the trade-off worth it since it's tough to distinguish with the fantastic Pro Performance mode. The curious part is the balanced option, which goes for 40 FPS, and strikes a middle ground with visual quality, but honestly, it's not worth the 30% cut in frame rate for marginal visual gains. The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered takes a different angle as well. It oddly retains the same exact 2 options available from the base PS5, graphics or performance priority. But there's a new Pro option that uses PSSR to take 1440p resolution to output 4K while retaining other visual qualities of the PS5's graphics mode and still hitting a consistent 60 FPS. It was already a visually impressive remaster on PS5, but the boost in performance while having all of its graphical details sing is nice. Of all the games that have gotten PS5 Pro updates ahead of launch, Alan Wake 2 is certainly the most interesting one.
Hold up. Hold your fucking horses. Hold your horses real quick.
It won't be exactly the same as native 4K since it's scaling from allows. It's nice to see Sony is. In my experience though, the visual near 60 FPS, even which goes for 40 FPS on PS5, but the boost in performance dates ahead of launch.
Like I don't see anything different though. Like
Alan Wake 2 is certainly the most interesting one. Remedy decided to go all in on ray tracing with its graphics mode, and it's absolutely stunning, with robust reflections and lighting giving its world a much more striking look, especially in the way that feeds into its atmosphere. The Pro and
okay, all right.
Remedy decided to go all in on ray tracing with its graphics mode, and it's
Bro, it looks like
absolutely
it's got
stunning,
filters
with
on.
robust reflections and lighting giving its world a much more striking look, especially in the way that feeds into
But I
its
just-
atmosphere. The Pro enhancements stretch the limits of what PSSR is capable of, however. In graphics mode, it uses a base resolution of 1224p and runs at 30 FPS to make room for all those sweet
1224p, baby. Oh man, I mean, I really think most of this is just as simple as it seems. It's an incremental small upgrade. If you got $700 to burn, sure, more power to you. But if you're somebody that's like been saving up and you got $700 in your savings account or whatever, and you've been a good boy or girl and you're ready to go, and you're trying to decide if this is what you spend that money on, I really don't think this is what you should do.
It's not worth it.
Like, remember, the sequel to the Switch comes out next year.
Oh,
You know, they're gonna have some big day one exclusives, I'm betting.
that's interesting.
And I think you get a lot more mileage for $700 out of that. But there are people who have plenty of money, who got plenty of money, and are able to buy both. And for
I wish I got plenty of money. Fucking A, man.
those people, you do you. Whatever, you know? You earn the money, presumably, so spend it how you want. But I think if we're looking at it through the perspective and through the lens of somebody that's not just able to buy everything, if you're just looking at it from the perspective of what is the best application of $700,
Yeah, that'll do me.
it's probably waiting for that Switch.
I'm poor,
sequel
so I can't.
and
I
then
can't do nothing.
spending the money
so.
there, because I think you're going to get a lot more out of that than like an incremental thing here. Now, if you have
Mighty Key's recent VOD was right.
not bought a PS5, if you don't have one, if you maybe are just still rocking a PS4, honestly, if you're looking at PS5 versus PS5 Pro, I could see maybe stretching it and like saving up a little more to get this, because you'll future-proof yourself some more, I'm sure. And especially as we get later in the console generation, what happened last time was there were a lot of games that were being developed, like The Last of Us Part 2, which looked and ran kind of the way they were supposed to on the PS4 Pro. On the base PS4, they were rougher, you know, way lower resolution, just didn't look quite as good. So it'll future-proof you for the rest of the generation, I'm sure. But I think that's pretty much where it breaks down. If you have not bought a PS5 yet and you don't have one, it's probably the best place to start to future-proof yourself. If you already have a PS5, really hard to justify spending all this money on a new one, especially when there's new hardware coming out next year. And if you're also a PC gamer, the 50 series is expected to be revealed at CES early next year. So if you want to like try to future-proof your PC, not even future-proof, it's like bringing it up to the future once that comes out, because the 50 series stuff is probably going to be a bit insane. Like there's been rumors of what an expected like DLSS 4.0 can do. We haven't seen it in action, but if DLSS 4, if the rumors are true, like straight up in some games, it can just like triple. It can just like triple your performance. It's ridiculous. So we'll see. 5090 prioritizing native. The crazy thing, New World, is that DLSS, like 3.7 frame generation, all of that stuff is so good in a lot of games. You can turn it on and it will just double your frame rate and you can't even really tell that it's on if you set it to quality mode. Like it's that good. It's ridiculous. It's as close to magic as you can get. There's some games where you can tell where maybe there's some latency involved and stuff like that, where you do want it to run natively, but a lot of these upscalers are getting so good, mainly DLSS, but DLSS is getting so good that there's a lot of cases where you can't even like tell. It's really impressive. So I wouldn't expect that the 5090 or 5080 like scrap or deprioritize rather the upscaling stuff. I think they continue to double down on it because it's just that good. But as they continue to train these models, these super sampling models, I think that they're only going to get better and better and better. And, you know, we've seen the discussions online of what they'll eventually be able to do, where you can take it and like, you can kind of pair the engine, the game engine, with the graphics card. So you could feed the graphics card upscaling model information about like the texture used on the street, or about what's in the skybox, or other information about the scene that's being rendered. And then it could then go and upscale those individual puddles based on that. It could upscale the road with information specifically taken from the game that's informing the upscaler in that moment. There's other things that have been discussed where there's specific upscaling training done by individual games. So you could have a game that's trained
I don't have the preview.
DLSS on how to upscale it based on like native rendered footage, and then the upscaler learns how to make Alan Wake 2 look the best it possibly can, and then it upscales based on that depending on which game you're in. So there's so many little bitty things that they can do to continue to overhaul it. But you know, that's why I've kind of had to go. I initially was like, I don't know, the upscaler thing, it's such a crutch. And I do think it is, I do think it is a crutch for a lot of people, or for a lot of devs, where they feel like they don't need to optimize, maybe not the devs, but the publishers. They feel like they don't need to optimize the game because they can just pass it through an upscaler to hit a frame rate target. That was like the story of Jedi, Star Wars Jedi Survive. Is that what it was called? That doesn't sound right in my brain. It was Fallen Order. Is it just Jedi Survivor? That doesn't sound right, but I think that is right. Anyway, but like that game did not run anywhere near as well as it should have. And it was because they just relied on FSR 2 to upscale it to make it run at a decent frame rate. And it should have been delayed like a lot, but they used that as a crutch to just put it out there, or EA did. I used to be very like annoyed by it, but the more I've seen the improvements they've made to like the path reconstruction for DLSS, I think that was in 3.4 or 3.5, and then the
Yeah, so basically just ends it, you know, just kind of summarize it, right? Specifically, you know, it's not really worth it. Like, it's not really blowing anyone off the water, because you can tell, right? Like, you can even tell from here specifically, right? Not really much of a fucking difference. Like, yeah, you can see like the fucking, you know, wow, you can see the building in the fucking water. Oh wow, that's so crazy. Wow, it's like my immersion is broken if I don't see my reflection or so, or something like that, you know?
Enhancements stretch the limits of what PSSR is capable of, however. In graphics mode, it uses a base resolution of 1224p and runs at 30 FPS to make room for all those sweet ray tracing techniques.
You have to use an upscaler. Monster Hunter Wilds might be the
features
same.
in performance mode, but
yeah, Monster Hunter Wild was definitely needs a ton of optimization. I've heard that the build that we played or so during the playtest or so was a more earlier build, and apparently the most newest build is the more better optimized one. Apparently, we'll see about that. We'll see if it's true or not.
It will target 60 FPS with an image quality akin to the graphics mode on the base PS5. It has to use a fairly low base resolution of 864p to get there though. It's still a great looking game in this mode, although it's definitely a blurrier image.
Yeah, but it doesn't even. Well, at the end of the day, like I played this shit on PC, and I thought on PC that shit looked fucking fantastic, to be honest.
Regardless, I find Alan Wake 2 shows a noticeable improvement over what you get from the base PS5, even if there are still compromises to be made.
You can't even see the difference. It's like there's not even a fucking difference.
Now, when there's a new powerful console, there's always a racing game to flex the hardware. Taking speedy race cars down the track in F124 provides.
I feel like this is just for like. I feel like this console's just meant to make these specific like these specific stuff just shiny and everything. Just make it look so pristine, so amazing, so you know. Like I don't know. At the end of the day, right? It's not even worth spending $700 for this console. To be honest, it just really is not worth it. So. But yeah, anyways, I just kind of wanted to talk about this a little bit, you know. Of course, you know, like I said, all the information's always down and below, of course. Well, we already know where this is from. This is from the video from here, of course, you know, but it's from IGN themselves, of course. And, you know, I don't know. It's not even worth it anyways, but that's the end of the video. You guys can comment, like, subscribe, do all that fancy jazzy stuff, and yeah, honestly, even if I had $700 in my pocket or so, I still wouldn't buy this shit. Like, I would just not buy this. Like, I'd just rather spend it on something else more beneficial to the stream than wasting it on a plastic box, you know, and that's it. But yeah, that's the end of the video, and yeah. Make sure you don't blow off your $700 or so on a plastic box, and